Welcome to a new video of Microsoft Flight Simulator graphics settings. My name is Starbucks and today we want to talk about hyperthreading. Is hyperthreading a problem in Microsoft Flight Simulator? I get so many comments that our problem in the Flight Simulator is that one CPU maxed out, and that's the reason why we get stuttering in the flight sim, and it isn't. Really not. But I can understand why people think it is. Because first I wanted to make a video how I explained you to deactivate hyperthreading to get a smoother running system. But now it's about 50 to 70 hours later, and I made about 200 flights from London City to London Heathrow because I have a really big problem to understand what the problem is on Microsoft Flight Simulator. Because I tried everything out to say, yeah, hyperthreading is a problem. Really, I tried it. But I must say, it isn't. Again, I can understand why people think it is. And I try to explain it as fast and as quick as I can. But it's a very complex thing, and so please don't abuse me if this video takes a little bit longer. And of course, I will need some seconds to find some words. Okay, I promise. Yeah, so you see in the right corner that I run a program called Process Lasso. Process Lasso is totally free. I will link it in the description. And in this program, we can see what our CPU cores are doing. And as you see, at the moment, there's one core which is at the maximum all the time. Or quite all the time. That's something you will see if you run this program. Because at the moment, I have a problem because I'm recording both screens. I run with a camera, all on OBS, all on one system, and I need to to do some tricks to give you this result, because normally my system must calculate many things in the background, and it don't look like this if I fly in the flight simulator. So something we must learn about the hyperthreading method of the flight sim. And before we start this, I try to explain you what is hyperthreading. And sorry again to explain something difficult or complex in English. It's hard for me, but I tried. So on hyperthreading means that you have not only one physical core in your CPU, every physical core has one virtual core. And the virtual core the physical core helps the virtual core helps the physical core to calculate a thread. And that's why it calls hyperthreading. A thread is one piece of a process which must get calculated. So every thread is one calculation in the processor. So there we are talking about threads. And normally a core can calculate one thread in a time. Not two, not three, one. One core, one thread. He calculates the thread, and then he calculates the next thread. With hyperthreading, the virtual core takes out a thread and give it to the physical core. The physical core, so how can I explain it right? The virtual prepare the thread for the physical core. That's better. And the physical core takes over the thread. In this time, where the physical thread is taking over it, the virtual core takes the next thread before the physical core ends with the calculation. So the next thread is already loaded in the virtual core, and after the physical core calculated his thread, immediately the virtual core gives the next thread to the physical core and takes out the next thread. And that's the case, or that's the point why we call about 2 threads at one time. So a hyperthreading core is able to manage 2 threads at the same time. But the calculation is made on the physical core. That's important to know. That's what was hard. So, as some people said, our problem is that our CPU maxed out, and that's why we get stuttering. And as I begin to try some graphic settings, I saw that this is not right, because at the moment, because my system load is very high, because I'm recording in the background, and I only get this result where one CPU core maxed out if I say to the flight simulator, please do not use the first physical and the first physical 2 cores, and don't use the hyperthreading cores of this CPUs. Because if I activate them, so that's the normal setting. If you start your flight simulator, just see what happens. We get more load on every core. But at the moment, there's one which maxed out. That's good. Okay. So let's start with this. Yeah? But what happened, or what happens when our CPU load increase? That's the point we must ask, because we see on the left side CPU 31%. And what we see on our right side, that's totally true, because only one CPU gets stressed at the moment. That's what we think. So let's try it out, and that was the problem I had. And the funny thing is, at the end, I will explain what the problem with the graphics is really in this program or in this game. So, okay, let's go back. I choose DLSS, DLLA. One little word about DX11 and DX12. If you use DX12, we get more CPU load on one core. That's totally true. So if you go on DX12, one core of the CPU is at max level. On DX11, it's leveled already a little bit better. I just want to say that. So let's go. Let's get some work for our CPU. And you see I use very, very high graphics now to get our CPU in a higher level. And I think we will get about 10 FPS right now, but I try it. Okay. Back. Okay, now you see our CPU runs very high. But what you also see, that our hyperthreading cores and our other cores, they are doing their job. They are absolutely doing their job. And you see on the left side our CPU usage 70%, 60%, and so on and so on. And That's the truth. That's the truth. Hyperthreading works brilliant in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Absolutely brilliant. If the CPU gets stressed, hyperthreading works. There's no issue with hyperthreading. But there's a different thing which makes us very big problems. And that's the truth about stuttering in the Microsoft Flight Simulator, and I will explain it to you right now. The problem is that not our CPU makes the restriction of FPS. It is the amount of data which went from one system to another. So you can say there's a highway from the CPU to the GPU, and there's a highway from the CPU to the RAM. Because we have no problems with RAM. Our CPU, as you see, is not maxed out. So we can go much higher. So no problem here. No problem in our GPU, no problem in our CPU, and on our RAM, I have 64 gigabytes. We have a load of 23, no problem. So what is the problem? Why we get restricted with FPS is because we have, in this game, a very, very big amount of data. And this data must get from the RAM to the CPU, from the CPU to the GPU, and back and forward and back and forward. And that's our problem. So you get more FPS if you change your mainboard and if you change your RAM. So if you have RAM with more megahertz, then it will be faster. And the biggest problem is that the graphics settings in the Microsoft Flight Simulator are not doing what you think they are doing. And believe me, it takes so many hours until I recognize what happens here. So please, if this video helps you and you like it, give me a subscribe, a thumb up, and if you say, "Wow, that's amazing good, amazing good job or very good job," then I would be very thankful if you buy me a coffee. Okay, but enough begging for now. So what is really, really, really the point on our graphic settings? We have terrain level of detail and object level of detail, and I think the most of you know that if you use different settings here, it has a very, very high impact on your frames per second. So that's true. But what are they doing? Terrain level of detail, for me, it says that the textures of the terrain can be set higher or lower here. And the same for the objects. So the pushback trucks and so on and so on. That was what I'm thinking about. And that's not true. They do a totally different thing. And I will show it. So let's go on the minimum settings here. Apply. Go back. And you see our FPS will, increase now. And we go into our drone. Believe me, I made so many flies. So many flies. Okay, it's not stuttering, nothing. Okay? There's no traffic at the moment, but it's totally fine. Oh, but we can do it. Come on. We load some traffic inside the sim. And just look on our CPU. It's working, but no problem. The planes get imported here, and so on and so on. And just look on this scenery. It's a perfect place to show what I want to show you. So you see in the back of the airport, there's nothing. There are no objects. It's, yeah, of course, there are buildings, but there are no objects. Okay? But look what happens if I change the settings of the object's level of detail to max level. You see what happens? So to not make this video so long, these two setting bars are only, or quite only, are only say or what can I say? I hate it if I don't find one word I'm searching for in my head. Adjust. Yeah, sorry. These two bars are only adjust the distance where objects get rendered, and that change everything of our graphic settings, because I tried to show it. Let's go here. Let's take this one here. You see our textures, auf Deutsch Texturen. Mann, das sind Texturen. Textures here. They are crisp, they are sharp, everything is okay. And normally we think that if we set down our settings of the level of detail of these objects, nothing happens. Can try this again. To max. Nothing. Nothing. If we look on the background here, there's an where the other airplane is. Perhaps if we set it down, not from here. That's too close. But if we go higher, you see the things disappear. Okay. And I must show you this because it's very important that you understand what happens in the flight simulator if you go to an airport. So just imagine you set down these settings because you think you're lowering the quality of the flight sim. And you come into a cluttered space, so an airport where many scenery is, and then you get stuttering. But you think you are set the details to 0 or to 10 or something else, and that makes no sense because you think, okay, I can't go further down. Then you begin to change other settings, terrain vector data, buildings, trees, everything like this. But you have no impact on your frames, because if you're high in the sky, you have no problems. But every time you approach a big city or an airport, you have big problems. Like me, I had it all the time, and I can't figure out why it is. Because the same thing happens with the terrain level of detail. Okay? But here, we have a little difference. You see it on the taxiways here. Now they are crisp, And now they get blurred. Yeah. Okay. So what can we do with these informations? The problem is not if you're flying. The problem is not if you are taxiing. The problem begins if you want to start, or if you want to take off, or if you approach. Because you're sitting on the end of the runway and you begin to roll, and all the scenery objects get out of your GPU if you go back there, because you see it. That has a big impact on the whole scenery on the airport, and we need the runway where we are taking off. And what we loaded before disappears, and it loads back if we go forward. And of course, if we come into an area like here in the middle, we get a big problem, because then many of the scenery gets loaded. And that's our big problem. Our very big problem. If too much scenery get loaded in the same, or in a very short time, then we are restricted by our mainboard and our RAM, because the amount of bytes which must get transported, only transported, gives us the stuttering. You can compare it very good with streaming a video. So you're on Netflix and you're watching a video. So your graphic card, no problem. Your CPU, no problem. Your RAM, no problem. But if you only have a bad connection, then it begins to stutter. It's the same thing here. Not our CPU, not our GPU, not our RAM, because the gigabyte of data, you can't compare the traffic on the motherboard with the amount of cache you have on the memory card, because also this traffic must go from the CPU to the GPU, and this has nothing to do with the RAM. And that's also a point why FSLTL is working better than the Microsoft add-ons which are original in the flight sim. Because, and that's, believe me, hours. Many hours. Because here I can show you a difference. Look on this card. Okay, this is level 1 of texture. Level 2. And it's very hard to get the last level here. Here's the last. One moment. Sorry for this, but the drone is too fast. Drone speed. I hate it, really. I hate it, really. And scroll it. Okay. Look on the tires. Now. So, the original textures of Microsoft Flight Simulator has different textures for the distance. So if we are close, this is the best quality we can have on the Flight Simulator. This is the second best, third best, and if I go further, I think there's one more step, then they will look like a rock. And I think, like here in the background, you see the vehicles. It's much better to see. This vehicle here has no problem. Yeah, it looks fantastic all the time. I hope you saw it here. Yeah, these are the textures of some objects of the Flight Simulator. But even here, this scenery is the normal Heathrow airport you can get for free in the world update. And even here are objects like this one. They have only one or two textures. So clear, 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 fully loaded. And now this is the second. Yeah, now there are no tires and nothing, but they have only two textures. And if I go further, now they disappear. Okay? And with the traffic, it's the same. So the airplanes on the flight simulator gets loaded one after another. And that's what FSLTL is not doing. FSLTL has an injection radius, and they inject the planes much earlier than the normal traffic of the flight simulator. And why is this all important for us to know? Because if you change your graphic settings, don't go too far to the left side, so don't put it too much down. Minimum, leave it at 100, and the object level of detail, I would say 102. And then set your PC to the right FPS overall, because then you don't have this big amount which comes at one time, because you come closer and the objects are getting loaded earlier and not all on one time. So of course, if you're standing still, these two settings brings you much more FPS, and if you're in the sky, the same, but not if you approach or if you take off. That's the first thing. The second thing is, depends what you are flying. If you're an airliner pilot, you have one trick you can make. And this is about off-screen terrain pre-caching. So off-screen terrain pre-caching makes only a difference. It's not, that was what I thought, that this setting reduces the quality of the terrain which I pre-cache, but that's not true. It only set the angle of vision. So if you're on ultra, you have 360 degrees around, which gets pre-cached like you look in the front. So there's no difference. If I look in this direction, I get objects on the ground until, I would say here, where the airplanes are rolling at the moment. But now there's until there. Okay? Because there are some objects, and here too. And if I turn around, the same here. So here are everywhere objects, and they get pre-cached. So if I turn around, I have no big issue on my FPS. Okay? But if I do set this to low, I have exactly the same picture as I had before if I look forward. But now look on the CPU usage if I turn around. It's stuttering, and now they get loaded. Look on this area here where the crane is, and what our CPU is doing. And if I turn very fast, I have more capacity, so let's make it on 200. Then it will be much more clearer to see. 200. Okay. So now we are looking to the crane, and now I'm turning around, and now you see the things are getting rendered. And if I turn very fast, it begins to stutter. And our CPU maxed completely out. And everybody who said to me, our CPU can only use one core, just look what our CPU is doing at the moment. Now, our CPU is a bottleneck because it can't calculate it so fast as needed. So 14 FPS and complete maxed out CPU on all cores. Okay? Let's try the same. With pre-caching on Ultra. And normally we would think we take it on Ultra, and of course that's not good. And that will drop our FPS. But wait for it. Look on our CPU. Just give it it leveled it down. Okay. Again, I turn and turn and turn. Look on the CPU. No impact. Why everything 360 degrees is rendered at the same, not at the same time, but it's already rendered. So if I turn, it must not be rendered. And that's a problem if you are sitting in your airplane and you set this setting too low, you turn to the left and you get FPS drops. But you will never think about to put this setting to ultra to get less stuttering. And that's a problem with the graphic settings in the flight simulator. They don't make any sense. They really don't make any sense. You can put your level of detail completely to the ground, but if you come into a cluttered area where so many objects are, then you get performance problems. Because the most of the scenery details, especially from mods, they don't have different textures. They only have high quality or disappeared. Okay? But I can totally understand why people say we have a problem with hyperthreading, but only if they don't test it out. And that's something I must say, if I give informations to you, I try to figure out, is it true what I'm talking about or is it not true? And it was not so difficult to see hyperthreading is working. That was not the point. It was horrible to play with the settings and fly one flight every time and look what the CPU is doing and what our RAM is doing and so on, because I don't know any way to read out the traffic data on my motherboard. I don't know that this is possible, but that's the only reason I can give you, and it makes totally sense. So if you have RAM with more megahertz, so which can make more calculations in a second, that will help, and that's something I tried out. So I tried some different parts of RAM, one with 2600 megahertz and one with 3300 megahertz, and that makes a difference. But also that I can't try is faster mainboard. I have none, so I must use this one I have. if somebody of the hardware companies is looking this video, send me a mainboard. I will try it. I will give a comment about the mainboard, and I will send it back, of course. So this is something I can tell you. I really hope this video helps you to understand what the graphic settings are doing on the Microsoft Flight Simulator and why we sometimes don't know why our frames are dropping, because in some settings you lower the settings and you get more problems than or compared to it if you take the maximum or the ultra settings. Okay. Whoa, that was hard for me. One cut in this length, but I don't want to show you 1,000 flights from London City to Heathrow, because that would be very boring. I hope this was explained in the way you can understand it. And again, leave a thumb up. Don't be too aggressive to me in the comments if I'm stuttering a little bit. I'm sorry for this. And I want to thank you all of the subscribers. The first 2 videos was a great success for me. Thanks. Yeah, if you want to donate or if you want to subscribe, that would be fantastic and motivates me to make more videos like this, which cost me tons of hours, I think. And I must shave. I must get a shave. Because really, I spent the last 3 days to figure out what the problem here is. Again, I would say thank you, and yeah, we will see you in the next videos, and I think I will get more fluent in English from video to video. Next time, I hope we can see something about playing this fantastic game and not only talking about graphic settings. Thank you, Starbucks is out. See you und auf Deutsch. Bis bald. Macht's gut, gute Nacht und Dankeschön.